Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is the Road to the Record channel introduction and game scoring breakdown special. Here, I will take on the challenge of mastering 10 games, known as the Gaming Decathlon, in a comparison to the Olympic Decathlon. The heptathlon was the main event of the ancient Greek Olympics and was brought back as the decathlon, which translates as a feat of 10, with 4 runs, 3 jumps, and 3 throwing events. The winner is referred to as the world's greatest athlete. My feat of 10 consists of sports management, grand strategy, and sandbox games. In the Olympic decathlon, the decathlete is not scored on a head-to-head ranking. Instead, they are scored on individual performance, with 1,000 points on offer. For example, the top finisher may earn 910 points. Second place may be just a few points behind in a tight finish, while the third place finisher could be well back and earn more than 100 points less. Each game is scored 0 to 1,000 to mimic the Olympic decathlon. The current world record holder is fellow Oregon Duck Ashton Eaton with 9,045 points, and that is my target. To make it challenging, each game is given the most difficult setup, like in sports management, where each game had me starting from the lowest division with only a few points on offer, until moving up to the highest divisions can finally earn me the points necessary to compete for the record. Looking at each game individually, here is a breakdown of how the 10 games are scored. First off, and the most complicated of 10 games, is Football Manager 2018, with new videos appearing every Monday. We start with table points. So their standings is organized as a table in soccer, and as in real life soccer, for each win you earn 3 points. For each tie or draw, you get 1 point. And upon a loss, no points are earned. So at the end of a season of every game played, if you had a perfect year winning every game, the maximum you could score is 138 points. Now, that's Tier 2 through Tier 5. The Premier League is Tier 1. Okay, Tier 6 is where the game started. Now, in addition to that, that's only 138 points. So I got to keep working in other ways to get to 1,000. The next part is the base score, meaning each season that I begin, depending on what level I'm playing at, I'll already start with a certain amount of points. Now, the National League North or South divisions, which I started in the National League North, that's Tier 6, has 0 points. So I started with a score of 0. Now, in my second season, I'm playing in the National League. So I actually started the year off with 100 points already. Okay, and then you get all the way up to the Premier League, and you start with a base score every season of 500 points. So getting to that Premier League is such a big deal in this game. Now, if you know soccer, you know that there's lots of tournaments that go into just, in addition to just the regular seasons that are played, as opposed to most American sports. Here, the biggest of those tournaments is the Champions League. So to win the Champions League earns 200 points, making the final 125. That's the big target. If the scoring for group games, the group league, you earn double points there, meaning 6 points for each win, 2 points for each draw. So it's worth a bit more than a regular league game would be. Now, all the other cups that have a similar setup to the Champions League follow the same format. For example, the Europa League has the exact same format. However, the Europa League is the second tier of those European competitions, and therefore it's worth less points overall. So it's scaled down similarly, but to win it, it's 125 points. The FA Cup, even though it doesn't have a group stage, it starts off in the same manner. So the FA Cup goes round by round, and depending on what round you end, your tournament in determines how many points you get. To win it, 125 points. The Carabao Cup, also known as the League Cup, tops out at 75 for winning that one. The FA Trophy, the lower tier trophy below the Carabao Cup, so the League Cup is just for the upper league teams, while the FA Trophy gets that National League North, the National League teams involved in that one. To win that, that's 50 points. Okay, and then the European-wide Super Cup that pits the Champions League winner versus the Europa League winner from the previous season, that's worth 50 points. That's a single game. The Community Shield, similar sort of setup with the FA Cup winner versus the league winner, is worth 25 points. All in all, this was by far the most complicated of the games because there's so many different tournaments going on, so many different ways to earn points. And any follower of professional soccer or football, as it's called through most of the world, know that winning the league is nice, but it's not enough. So much goes into the other tournaments, especially the European-wide tournaments like the Champions League, the Europa League in England. So much more than just the league itself, but the FA Cup, the League Cup, all play a pivotal role. So there actually is potential for more than 1,000 points. For example, let's say a quadruple. If you could pull off a quadruple or even a treble, and say get a 100-point season in the league. Let's see what that would add up to real quick before we move on to the next game. And I swear the other games are going to go a lot faster on this as their scoring systems are far less complicated. So in the league, you get 100 points. So there's 100. The base score was 500 for Premier League, so that's 600. You win the Champions League, that's 200, so now we're at 800. But there was the group stage. So you had 6 games in the group stage. Let's say you won all of them. 6 games, that's 3 wins, that's 3 points per win. Okay, that's 18 points, but it's double points, so that's actually 36. Okay, so now we're looking at 836 points. You can't win the Europa League because, well, you were competing in the Champions League. But let's say you win the FA Cup. That's 125 points. So now we're looking at 900 and, what is that, 61 now? I'm doing my math correctly? Yeah, 961. Let's say you win the Carabao Cup, the League Cup as well. Okay, so now we have that chance to get slightly over 1,000 points with a near perfect season. That's 4 trophies and 100 points in league. That is insane to be able to do that. But we've certainly seen trebles before. But that would definitely be mastering the game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second game now, which I'm going in order of the posting schedule. So this is Stellaris. Stellaris features new videos every Tuesday. And the target for this game is a domination victory. A domination victory in-game is done by owning 40% of all the habitable planets. So for me, that translates to win the game, translates as 1,000 points, meaning 40% ownership of planets. So my current campaign, my 2.0 campaign, there's 110 habitable planets. So you divide that into 1,000 points, well, that comes out to 9 points per planet, but that takes me to 990. So there's 10 points left out there. So for me, every 10th planet that I get ownership of, there's that bonus point that'll hit 1,000 in the end. That simple. Far more simple than it is to understand what's going on in Football Manager. So I will more frequently within episodes of Football Manager kind of explain where I'm at points-wise. Next up is Minecraft. Now, Minecraft is done as a speed run. The end game is killing the Ender Dragon in the least amount of time possible. Now, watching those videos, you'll see how the segments are broken down, but there are 16 segments, so there's 16 target points, and each time you hit a target point, you clear that and you move on to the next target. So it's a way to approach that end game. It's nothing more than that. There's nothing massive that happens, but one example is acquiring a full set of iron armor. So that you have the defenses necessary to survive through to the end of the game. Not that survival is a necessity, but if you die and lose everything, or you have to go back and get it, you're going to lose a lot of time. So there are 16 segments. Each segment is worth 25 points. There's 400. The other 600 come from just one other thing, so just 2 areas to acquire the points. Now, the other area is how long it takes to finish the game, meaning to kill the Ender Dragon. No points are required from this section unless I actually succeed in killing the Ender Dragon. So nothing plays into the time on the individual segments along the way other than reference. My target is to finish the game in 1 hour. That makes up the other 600 points. So 1 hour is 600 points. Now, I can actually get better than that. That would be a crazy time. But from there, I lose 1 point every half minute, 30 seconds, over a 5-hour period, which means I have 6 hours for a time limit. If after 6 hours I have not beaten the game, the run through is done. Why? Because the time bonus is completely gone. So that's where it comes down to those segments score. So, quick example. If I were to finish the game in 2 hours, okay, what I'd be looking at is I would have a subtraction from that 600 points, and there's 1 point lost every half minute. Okay, so in 60 minutes, that would be 120 points that would have been lost, meaning I would have a score of 480 plus the 16 segments being completed. That would be a score of 880 overall. Okay, next up, Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2017. Okay, this one's a little more complicated because similar to the Football Manager, there's a bit of stuff going on. But this one comes down to your regular season performance. Pretty straightforward. You don't always have the same number of games in a season, so only rewarding wins with 5 points for each win. Then you get to the league playoffs at the end of the season. To make it to the quarterfinals is 5 points. The semifinals is 15. Making the final is 25. And to win the league tournament is 50 points. Also, there's a permanent point bonus that picks up 10 points. So in this game, I have a number of permanent bonuses that can be acquired. So where you're not looking for the perfect season, but you're looking to build a dynasty. You're looking to win NCAA titles. And that's where you can really start to pick up points. An individual season's not going to get you 1,000. Now, beyond the league playoffs, you have that post-season tournament. There's actually 4 different tournaments. This is actually the same in real life. Most people are familiar with the NIT tournament. A lot of people don't know about the CBI or CIT tournament, but they do exist. But of course, the mecca is the NCAA tournament. Now, each of them plays out the exact same way, but scaled down, just like I have in Football Manager. So the NCAA tourney is 100 permanent points for winning each title. But for the individual season, you win the NCAA tournament, there's 200 points. To make the final but lose it is 150. Getting to the Final Four, 125, the Elite Eight, 100, Sweet 16, 75, second round, 60, first round, 50, and in those pre-qualifiers, of those extra, oh gosh, what is it, 8 teams that get in? No, not 8. It's not 72. It's 68, I believe. Anyway, 40. And I've actually already made that once. Now, again, the other 3 tournaments scale down. So to win those, the equivalent, the NIT is 150 instead of 200. The CBI is 100 instead of 200. And the CIT is 75. Now, the other little piece is I do have a base score here as well. There's 23 divisions. They're given a letter ranking for each one. So A to, where did we start? V, I believe. V has a base score of 0. And each level above that adds just 10 points. So at the start of each season, so if you're in U, 10 points. T is 20 points. Okay, on up to A, where there's a base score of 210 points. So if you're playing in the top division, you start with 210 points. Let's say you win 20 games on the season and just barely qualify for the tournament. So there's 100 points. So that would be 310 points. But you win the league playoffs, which is how you got in. Okay, that's, where was I? 310. That's 360 points, plus you get 10 points added as a title. But let's say it's the first one you ever won. So that's 320 points, if I'm still doing the math correctly. I'm talking at the same time. It's hard to remember those numbers. But you qualified for the NCAA tournament, and you go on a surprise run, and you win it. Okay, so that's 510 points now, plus another 100 for winning the title. So it's only 610 points. So if you somehow get all the way up to Division A without having won any titles, and you have a 20-win season, but you go on a run and win the league playoffs, win the NCAA tournament, you're still going to be well short of 1,000 points. So this game very much requires longevity, winning some titles along the way. Doesn't mean you have to win the NCAA tournament over and over and over again, but you're going to definitely have to win some league playoffs along the way to pick up, say, 10 of them is going to get you 100 points. And moving up 22 divisions to get to League A is going to involve winning some league playoffs. Okay, next up on the list, we're on to Crusader Kings 2. This one has new videos every Thursday. Draft day was on Wednesday. This one is pretty simplistic. It's a grand strategy game. It has its own scoring method, and the maximum score in-game is about 100,000. So I take that and divide my total score by 100, and that, if I hit that maximum score, would be 1,000. Now, here, the way that points are earned is you are controlling a character, and it's all about dynasty. When your character dies, you take over as their heir. Points are earned upon the death of each character that you control, and it combines 2 things, prestige and piety. So how you're viewed by the people, how you're viewed by the church. Those 2 scores add together when that character dies, and then over the course of the game, each death of character that you're playing adds together for your overall score, where you can eventually, if you play it perfectly, hit about 100,000. One key thing on that game, though, is it takes the death of that character to acquire points. So I've had a playthrough where I had a character that took over at the age of 2 and lived to a very, very old age. So I had to wait a long time for my score to change. It's a little frustrating, but that's the way the scoring system in that game works. And it does work. It's just frustrating to wait every once in a while when you've done a lot of things, but because you have the same character, you've got to wait. All right, next up is 7 Days to Die. It posts videos every Thursday as well, and this one's pretty simplistic. My goal here is to survive 100 days playing on the highest difficulty without dying at all. So 0 deaths, 100 days, highest difficulty would equal 1,000 points. to do that, it's days survived. So each day that you survive, you pick up 10 points. You do that 100 times, there's 1,000 points. But there's a penalty. Score can go the other direction. Each time that I die, I lose 5 points. Now, on a bad horde night where things go horribly wrong, you could actually die 10, 15, 20 times in a single night in that game if you don't handle it right. So while it's easy to get through on minimal deaths if played carefully and played right, things can go wrong very, very quickly, especially if you die on a horde night in the wrong place. You can really get caught out pretty fast. Now, the difficulty level was the other part to that. I didn't start at the highest difficulty level, which is insane. So I also set up a points cap. So insane difficulty, the cap is, 1,000 points. That's the target. But if you play the difficulty below that, survivalist, I have a points cap of 900. Warrior is 800, Nomad is 700. So my first playthrough is Nomad. So if the target is, the cap is 700 points, what that means is if I survive 70 nights and have 700 points, I can't get to 710 or 720 or 730. My limit is 700 points. So if I get to 70 nights and have not died once, well, then my playthrough is going to end there, and I need to move up my difficulty level for the next playthrough. If I've died a number of times, then I can continue until I reach that cap. But once I hit that cap, playthrough done, move on, higher difficulty level. But I want to work my way up to insane, 100 days, and no deaths to get that max score. Okay, we are moving on down the list. Next up is Motorsport Manager that has new videos every Friday. This one, it's a Formula One series. There's 3 tiers, and I'm the manager of a 2-car team down in the lowest tier. This one, like my other sports management games, requires moving up through the levels to get the highest score. And here's how the scoring breakdown works. Fairly simple here compared to the other sports management games. Starting off in, I'm using the Formula One Season 2017 mod, which renames them Formula 1, Formula 2, and GP3. So starting in the GP3 category, which in-game is the Euro League, for the Constructors' Championship, which is the points that the team earns combined, regardless of what driver is in the car. The maximum score, meaning you got first and second place every single race throughout the season, is 473 points. I have a multiplier times 1, meaning if you get 473 points, that's what you get. So the maximum score is actually below 500 down in that GP3 category. You move up to Formula 2, works a little differently there. Point system, points are only awarded to a handful of top finishers in those races and not very many points. So a perfect season with top 2 finishes in every single race is only 240 points. So there I have a multiplier of 3, meaning if you multiply 240, or let's say 200, make it easy math here, 200, multiply it by 3, that's a 600 point season. Finally, in Formula 1, it has a maximum score over the course of the season with top 2 finishes throughout of 688. There too, I have a multiplier of 1, but only in Formula 1, I have a bonus to get that other little over 300 points this way, a driver bonus. And it only is applied at the end of the season based on the driver's final position in the standings. So if we have first and second, first is 200 points, second is 125, there's an extra 325 points. So we have a perfect or very, very close to perfect season, like 1/3 place during the season. Otherwise, first and second all year long, and get right about 1,000 points. But that's only in the Formula One category. Okay, so next up is Europa Universalis 4. This is another grand strategy game, and this one, like Crusader Kings 2, is scored in a pretty specific way by the game itself. The maximum score that you can get in-game is about 7,500. So I take that and divide my total score by 10, so that would get me up to about 750 points. Now the way that score is accumulated in-game is it's based on your nation ranking in 3 categories: administrative, diplomatic, and military rank. It's accumulated monthly, and you have to be in the top 10 nations in the world in one or all or any of those 3 categories. So if you crack the top 10 in an administrative, you'll start accumulating points as each month ticks by. The second place where I'm getting points, the other 250, is I have a count back based on rank. So once you have acquired some points, once you've earned that first point and you're on the board when it comes to points, each nation that has scored points are ranked. Whoever has the most is ranked 1. Whoever's ranked with the second most points is ranked 2. And so on, down to that list until you get to zeros where nobody at 0 is ranked. I have a count back of 250 points for being ranked first. Second gets 249. Third, 248. You subtract 1 point for each position down in the rankings that you are compared to everyone else, and that one is a real-time thing. So at the end of each episode, depending on where my rank is, I get those count back points. So let's say I am 50th, then I would have 200 points. And next up is Factorio. And Factorio, like Minecraft, is played on a speed run. This game features new videos every Saturday. And like Minecraft, I have it broken into segments. The end game for that one is to launching a rocket into space armed with a satellite. There's 20 segments progressing towards the end, and like Minecraft, they are 25 points each, which means this one comes to 500 points total. The other 500, like Minecraft, is taken from a time bonus based on when I finish the game. That perfect score, that 500 points, is to finish within 5 hours. Now, there have been about 2 or 3 people worldwide that have actually beat that time, but only a few. So I set my limit at 5 hours, and that is 500 points. So you finish all 20 segments, that's 500. Finish in 5 hours, there's 1,000 points. But you can subtract points from there based on how much longer it is till I finish the game, and that's 1 point per minute, because the times really stretch out pretty fast in Factorio, unlike Minecraft. So 1 point per minute is subtracted from that 5 hour mark and from that 500 points. Now, by subtracting 1 point each minute, for example, if I finished in 6 hours, that would be 440 points. 60 minutes, 60 points, 440. Okay, the time limit there, where I'm down to that final point, just 1 point left, is 13 hours and 20 minutes. So if I can't finish in that time, it's game over and start the next run. And finally, Pro Cycling Manager 2017. This one uses a super prestige ranking, where every rider in all the 3 different tiers of racing, from the World Tour on down to the Continental level, are all matched head-to-head together in this super prestige ranking. So that's the only one that I count, and I'm doing Pro Cyclist mode, where I have just an individual rider, and that rider, whatever my score is where my score is taken from for this game. Now, the best rider in the world at the end of a season generally has between about 3,500 and 4,500 super prestige points, but their maximum can get slightly above 5,000. So 5,000 to 1,000, that's a scale of 5 to 1. So I divide my super prestige score by 5 to get my overall ranking. Now on that super prestige, it depends on what race you are racing, on how many points are up there. For example, if I win the Tour de France, the one that everybody knows by name, I'm going to get a lot more points than I'm going to get for racing some local no-name race that no one's ever heard of. So when I raced the Continental in the first division, I had 5 wins over the course of that first season and a number of top 10 performances. But by the end of the year, I still only had a handful of points because the races that I did win, the races that I was getting in the top 10, weren't prestigious races. So the higher the level, the more points you're going to earn. So again, it forces me to move up to that higher level. All right, well, that's it. That is 10 games. That is how each of the 10 games are broken down by score. If you still have any questions on that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be happy to address. I didn't get to everything that was there, but for the most part, that is how each game is broken down, how each score is acquired. Football Manager is about the only one that has a complicated system. Draft Day College Basketball has almost the exact same system, but it's a little less complicated just because there's fewer tournaments going on. But overall, I tried really hard to keep each game with a simple scoring system, and each game had to be measured in a way that was not subjective, meaning I'm not making up a score myself. Each one is based on a physical performance and not just, oh, I think I did good today, I'm going to give myself 100 points. So there's nothing subjective about any of them, and that's actually kind of how I came down to the 10 games that I did, because there were some other games that I actually really wanted to include, but they didn't have an accurate scoring system. They didn't have a reliable way to look at the game and say, here's exactly how I've done. And for me, to translate that to 1,000 points, I couldn't do that definitively. So that's how I came to these 10 games. That's how I came to the scores for each of those 10 games that could eventually reach the record. But that's it for this video. If you've watched all the way to the end, thank you very much. And even if you skip to the end, just to look for how one game is scored, that's fine too. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to watch the channel. Be sure to hit subscribe. And be sure to tune in week by week and see what there is out there as I continue to work on the road to the record. Bye for now.